Hey everybody, this is Alexis. I hope that everybody is doing well tuning in to this video. I wanted to get on to talk about a very I don't know if it's an ordinary topic or a common topic, but I know if you're in the world of like social sciences and psychology, and this is a thought that often comes up in conversation, and especially in the dynamics of relationship, in the dynamics of marriage. And I was talking to a very, very close friend of mine, and we were just talking about, relationships and um, and needs and wants and desires in a relationship. And so they were sharing one of the things that they want in their relationship. And so I said, well, what does that look like? You know, and of course, it started a whole dynamic of another conversation from this place. And that is, a lot of times people are not sure about what they want, right? They think they know what they want. But when you ask someone, well, what does that look like to you? What does that feel like to you? What does that sound like to you? It's almost this, billion-dollar question, because who's really asking the person, what does that look like to you? You know, and I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with not knowing. However, you can't hold somebody else accountable to what you want if you don't even know what that looks like, or you don't even have an idea of what that should feel like. You know, for example, a woman may say, "Oh, I want to feel safe." Okay, well, what does that look like? What does safety look like to you? Because what safety may be for me, it may not be that for somebody else. And so one has to really define, like, okay, wait a minute, let me stop and think about, what does safety look like to me? And so we kind of move in relationships based off of pattern, based off what we've known. And sometimes as you start to get older, whatever you felt defined you in a relationship starts to evolve, or it starts to change. And so now, let's just say, for example, if one deemed sex was the most important thing to them, and whether they were in a serious relationship or not, but that's what they had to have, whoever they were talking to, whether it was monogamous or not, sex was the drive for them. Sex was the thing that made them feel worthy, or made them feel like they are being seen. But as they get older, something starts to change, and they start to see, no matter how much sex I have, that it is not filling me, it is not satisfying me, it is not touching something deeper on the inside. And so now they find themselves in a relationship, and they like it and it's cool, and they start to say, well, I need for you to this, or I need for you to that. And then the person that they are involved with says, well, what does that look like? Or what does that sound like to you? And then that person can't articulate it, because they know something is missing. But because this may be new for them, or this may be a new experience, it's like, how do I find the words to match what it is that I say that I want, and expect an expectation from somebody who I can't even tell them what it is. I hope that makes sense. And so, what I want to articulate is that when you realize that something is missing, or something, you know that you want something, or you say I want to be seen, right? I want to be seen by my husband. I want to be seen by my wife. I want to be seen by my significant other. So then it is the question, well, what does that look like to you? What would make you feel like you're being seen? And I think sometimes we can indirectly and naively hold people captive to something we think that they should already know. And the reality is that they don't know. And so it is important and healthy to really sit back and think about, if you feel like you're not being seen, if you feel like you're not if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel wanted, if you don't feel acknowledged, then you have to ask yourself, well, what does that look like to me? What would that feel like to me? Because when you start to do that, then you're able to articulate on a greater level to your significant other or your husband or your wife about where you are emotionally, mentally, internally. I do this technique because sometimes we're so driven by the norm that we have created, and sometimes emotion doesn't allow for us to really be able to articulate ourselves, right? So I do this thing where I tell a client, it can be like, I can say to them, well, I'm getting ready to ask you a question, and before you answer the question, I want you to close your eyes and just think about it for a few seconds, because I want them to feel their answers. Because sometimes when we have eye movement, we tend to think logically, and we don't really connect with ourselves. We don't really connect inwardly, right? So we go off an analytical OS, and the OS is the operating system. So we go off an analytical OS, and we don't go off of really connecting to the feeling that you are feeling, so that you can articulate yourself. And sometimes I will tell an individual, if I'm talking to them face to face, and I am asking them a certain question, or I can see that something is going on, and it may be hard for them to articulate because they haven't really tuned into those emotions, or they've never done that before. So I'll say, close your eyes, breathe out, sit for a moment, and connect to what you're feeling, because it is there that you get to see your real self and connected to those emotions or that feeling. And sometimes it can be scary, because when I have someone to do that, it really it's abandonment, or it's rejection, or I realized that my mother didn't hug me when I was little, or my father didn't say I love you. I realized that I have been searching for love in all the wrong places. I close my eyes, and I remember, that the first time that I felt abandoned was when that particular thing happened. And so now that's what makes me afraid to connect. And sometimes we may want something or know that we want something, but we don't know how to get the words to articulate it, because we may be afraid to go deeper into that place, because I'm afraid of what it may make me look like, or I'm afraid of what it may make me sound like. And so you're not able to operate on this higher level of your existence or frequency, or for for my spiritual people, or that higher spiritual place, because you just know that you want something, but you're not really willing to slow down to be able to articulate to yourself, so that you can articulate to whoever, your husband, wife, your significant other, about like where you are. And so now, if I in tune to that, like if I in tune, I want to feel safe. Well, why do you want to feel safe? Where is that coming from? That's a need. That's a hierarchy need of emotional intelligence. That's a hierarchy of need in a marriage, in a relationship, to feel safe. And excuse me. So we have to be able to connect with our inner self. And by that, I mean our emotions, those emotions that we're afraid of, those emotions and those feelings that we probably have never had to tap into before. So that when I say I want to be seen, and someone says, well, what does that look like to you? Well, you know what? For me, being seen is when I walk into the house, my husband kisses me or my wife kisses me. Being seen for me means that he or she took the time out to ask me how my day was and was attentive towards me. Being seen means for me that my head is rubbed, or I get a massage, or I'm touched, or holding the face, being seen, or feeling safe. When I did the After Dark with Alexis, we just talking with Rakia Anderson, Red Fidel, and Sean Smith, and we talked about various things, but one of the things that Rakia said was safe intimacy for her, because I think I asked the question about like what does intimacy mean for them, or what does that look like? And she said for her, intimacy was safety. And I thought, like, wow, I never looked at it from that place. Like, that's interesting. Very thought-provoking, very eye-opening, very, grown up, So safety can operate on so many other different levels. Safety for me is knowing that we're not spending our money any kind of way. Safety is, having food in the house, and I don't care if it's loaf of bread and peanut butter and jelly. Safety is being responsible. So it may mean a myriad of things to people, but you have to be able to, somebody ask you, if your husband and your wife ask you, or your significant other ask you, well, what does that look like to you? And even if you can't answer right then and there, then that is something that you will have to kind of sit, and maybe in that minute, and for that moment, kind of sit in that and like be still and breathe and intake the question and really connect to your feelings, so that you can start to articulate what that looks like to you. Because in doing this technique or this this exercise, you're not only finding a way to be in tune with yourself, you're finding a way to be in tune in your relationship. And you can find your words, and say, this is what makes me feel safe, or this is what makes me say that I'm being seen, or makes me feel that I'm being seen. You know, um, you know what that being seen is, I'm not on my phone while I'm with my husband or my wife. I am giving them my undivided attention. So being seen may be, I wish when we are watching a movie, or we're eating, or we're doing whatever, if it's our time, I would want for us not to be, drawn away or consumed with mobile devices, iPads, or whatever, that we are really present with one another. So it's important that you be able to articulate and transfer, what it is that you want, and not always think that, that your the person that you're with is to assume that they know what you want or what you're desiring, because on some levels I don't think that that's fair. you know um I don't think that that's fair. Now, if I know that I went to the store and I bought the little pack of Snickers, and I know that's your thing, you know I might need you the last one, because I'm aware that you love Snickers. I'm just using that to be funny and using that as an example, but I hope that you get what it is that I'm trying to say, because we, you know, have to be in a place where we're able to create this equilibrium and unification beyond the physical. It has to be mental, it has to be emotional, it has to be spiritual in a lot of regards, and being able to, like, to connect. And, you know, I think that asking, well, what does that look like to you, is a very valid question, because one, it shows that I'm acknowledging you. Two, it shows that I am truly concerned about what you're concerned about. Three, I am willing to, hear you and get a better understanding of what your needs are. So I think that yeah, that we have to grow up in our conversation with one another, and stop speaking crayon, or having, you know, these very um, low base, um, ideologies about relationship, because that's what we've done in the past, or that's the norm. And really be adults and talk about it, because it's not always easy, but it is really like, okay, well, babe, what does that look like to you? What does that sound like to you? um and the person who is the person who doesn't think they're being seen, or the person who isn't feeling safe, you're going to have to really be able to articulate what it is that you are in need of, or in want of, so that there can be this healthy exchange of connection with one another, and so that you can evolve in your relationship or your marriage. And so, with that being said, this has been Alexis. I hope that the information that I just shared has been totally and ultimately beneficial to you. I hope that it has provoked you to think on another level, and really be try to get in tune with with what it is that you want, if you're the person who is seeking something, or feeling like you're not seen, or you're not feeling safe. then I want you to be able to articulate that. And just, even if you have to do it to yourself at first, with yourself at first, and close your eyes, take a deep breath, connect with your feelings, take a few seconds, and really become one with them, so that you can find your words, and those words are not coming out in frustration or anger or disappointment or rejection. It is about saying, well, when you did this, I felt rejected, or when you did this, I felt abandoned. When you did this, I didn't feel safe anymore. you know and I think sometimes emotions, when they're very high, they don't really allow us to be in tune with the real reason for the issue, or the real, where the real pain lies. So the pain is really unhurt, but it comes out as anger, or you know you know gnashing out. And but I get it and I understand it, you know but you definitely have to learn how to be one with what's really going on inside of you. And I think when you're able to do that, I think you grow as an individual. I think you learn to really calm yourself, and you know and be able to be one with that emotion, because it is scary, like, to really have to sit in that, or sit in that emotion. Sometimes it's not easy. I mean, I know I've had to do it, and it's not always easy to have to sit in that, and really just tear down those negative coping mechanisms, or those negative defense mechanisms that promotes this hardness. And I have to always guard myself, you know but be able to be in that, and be vulnerable in that, so that you can really express, like, what is really going on inside of you. you know as a husband or a wife, they may be yelling, like, you never home, or you work too much. But in actuality, they're saying, I miss you, and I really want to spend time with you. But we have to grow up, right? We have to say, okay, like, let's stop. Okay, what am I really saying? Like, what am I really articulating? So it really does take this drawing back to say, okay, I know that I'm saying this, but this is what I really feel, and this is what's happening. I really do miss you. You know, we haven't had a date night in a long time. I don't feel like, I feel like you come in and you're right back out, and there is no focus on the relationship or the marriage. There's no focus on me. And just be honest in it. Just be honest in it. So, again, this has been Alexis. Toodles. And I hope that something was truly said that will get you to elevate your marriage, your relationship, and elevate yourself, so that you can be healthy and operate on this level of reciprocation that is on a spectrum of trueness, realness, and oneness. Until next time.